Fiddly fucking D to you, Sean. We going up the longest ladder with this grueling episode from TNG season 2. I am co-host Jack Tracy. With me
is a very unhappy co-host, Sean Ferrick.
This was a hate crime against Sean.
Yes, it bloody was.
Yeah, even I give this 0 ghost candles, a Miles O'Brien eyebrow raise. Um, I can't believe he was in this episode and didn't stop it. Like,
It, we can talk about that.
right. So not only is this 0 ghost candles, and the most grueling one we have done, the one where I just kept checking, like, is this almost over? But also, this is one that, like, it's going to, okay, so up the long ladder for us is now going to be the term of, like, an episode was hard to get through. Like, this episode, we went up the long ladder on this because this was I think it is coined, up the long ladder now means this was a hard watch and hard to finish.
Like, the fact that it has overtaken Alamarine in terms of our, like,
Well,
go to, like, oh, well, that's a different one. No, because we discussed this, obviously, in the last
yeah.
episode. That was nowhere near as tough to get through as is. There are ideas in this worth discussing.
Mm.
Like, it is not a completely irredeemable episode, but my goodness.
Yeah, I definitely thought there was much more redeemable about Move Along Home because the episode actually, as we talked about
Sure.
last time, Move Along Home actually works for a little while before it goes off the rails. This is off the
Sure.
rails from the top. So let's give you a brief summary for those of you who have forgotten this episode, much like I have. The only thing I remembered about it going into was uh, a stereotypical Irish people in the cargo bay, a lady in a midriff, and feet washing. I didn't remember anything about what the plot of this was. My brain actually refused to store it in my memory. Um, and I'm surprised I have any of it now. So forgot the whole cloning thing. Okay, so in this episode, we get a weird. I feel like they were like, "Oh, we do too many captain's logs. So, let's do a something in the ready room where Picard and Riker figure out the easiest mystery in the world that's solved by Siri and Google." So they get some sort of distress call. They figure out it's this old Earth ship. And correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't it like, sorry, going through my notes here. Wasn't this like these were people who escaped, who like left Earth because they didn't want to be part of like the one world government or something?
A little bit, yeah, because they talk about the fact that they left in the 22nd century, which is the Vulcans had already arrived at that point. Warp drive had been invented at that point. This one is one where I think continuity and this episode are not friends, because I don't think this works in a post-Star Trek First Contact Star Trek.
Right. Okay. And so that goes into my judging, so we'll save that there. So we've got 3 things going on. We find out that there was a ship that left Earth because Irish be Irishin, and they wanted to be Irish and not be part of the Federation and or one world government or whatever of Earth. They just wanted to go back to their roots. So they packed up their spinning wheels and livestock and boarded a ship to find a place to go to. Also on the ship were or there was a second colony ship, or there was another in like a convoy, or they were also on the ship. There was this group of, science-y people. So to me, and we'll get to this in judging, these are like progressives and conservatives. So anyway, so you've got science people who also, I guess, didn't want to be part of the Federation / One Earth or whatever. So you got people who were like, "Fuck this place." Who after the Trump election went to Canada. That's basically what happened. So they find that they thought they were basically, the Federation just was like, "Fuck these people. We don't even need to keep track of them." And so they come across some sort of distress signal from forever ago that, oh wait, remember these fuckers who didn't want to be part of this? Let's go check them out. So they find out that the Irish ship crashed, and they're on a planet that is about to be destroyed by some sort of something, solar flare, supernova, something, doesn't matter, it's boring. and they beam them all up. Riker beams down. We get a reveal because we don't see Riker on the planet. Beams them up, and there are a whole bunch of, you know, I don't even know what time period this would be, but like,
If you were to, by the look of them, you're looking at 19th century Ireland, rural Ireland.
19th century Ireland. We beam them up to the cargo bay. Picard is as pissed at this as he is at children running around the ship with snowballs. We see a girl with a chicken. And and sorry, I'm having like nightmares. Like these images are coming up in my mind as I'm recalling this. So I don't know. It's weird. They talk to the colonists. There's the bossy Irish lady. There's the drunk dad. A Middrift colonist, which we always got to keep away from Riker. There's some foot washing shit. It's just we got to find you a new planet. They're like, neat. Cool, like they're totally sure. Let's do this. And then like, does anybody want any women? We got extra ones. Does anyone need some women?
Yeah.
Then okay, so then there's some reference to like, oh well, we always wondered what happened to the other ship, or the other colonists, and then they find the other colonists who are there weren't enough of them because of whatever accident happened or crash landing or whatever. There weren't enough of them so to populate a species, so they figured out how to clone themselves. So it's basically the Cylons from the new Battlestar, where there's like 8 of them, and there's a million of those 8. So okay, so there's a million of them, and they have a problem because there's a movie, I don't know if you know it, called Multiplicity. It's from the 90s with Michael Keaton. Where
I know, I've not seen it. I remember seeing the cover of it in the video stores, and there's like 8 of him or something.
So it's probably problematic now. It's probably not a good movie, but I remember liking it as a child. It was basically a workaholic dad who he wishes there were more of him. So he like takes part of this like cloning experiment, and he gets another him, and the other him is like a super diligent. The problem is one of the clones is obviously gay. And is like he's being
I presume as well 90s really stereotypical.
He's just a bit sassy. It's actually not like there's no love. He's just a bit sassy. So I think he's the housewife one. So he gets a work one, and then the work one takes over. But then he's like, oh, there's too many chores at home, so he gets a housewife one, and they're all hiding it from his wife, who is Andie MacDowell. And so anyway, there's a line in that where then they get one. The clones get a clone. So it's a copy of a copy, and he is mentally handicapped.
Which is so like that idea of taking a screenshot of a screenshot, and eventually the quality is supposed to get
and
lower.
There
and
is
lower
a line in the movie exactly like that. You know, when you make a copy of a copy, it's not quite as sharp as the original, and there's the guy like huffing glue or something. Anyway, so that's the problem on this planet. There's a they've been copying copies for too long, and the genetic shit isn't going to work anymore, and they're eventually all going to die out. So what they want is to take genetic material from the Enterprise crew to help, repopulate the gene pool. Riker is like, fuck no, we do this the old-fashioned way. You got any women? And basically they look around the table. They're like, any takers? And all like, nah, we're good. And they're very casual about the fact, like, yeah, you're all going extinct. Sucks to be you. Do you want us to like fix your power generator? It's real cold.
Like 100%. Like
real cold. Real like, yeah. You guys creep us out. We're not interested. So they beam down to the planet. Obviously, the colonists who like listen, as creepy as they are, they were all going to die out, and they did what they had to do. It's almost the binars from 110. We couldn't risk you saying no, so like we just did what we had to do. There's they're not quite that evil because faced with what they were faced with, they kind of did what they thought they had to do. So anyway, they find the clones. Riker and Pulaski put it together very quickly that they were abducted because Geordi reveals that they were missing for a period of time. They go and find the clones. They destroy the clones that are like baking in these clone ovens, and then basically someone has a bright idea of like, wait a minute, we got these Irish fucks up here. Why don't we drop them down here? Y'all fuck each other, and then like they get a new planet. You get fresh breeding stock, I believe is a lot.
Literally the quote.
Is a line.
Yeah, literally.
which fresh breeding stock is it's like that's one of my top 2 Pornhub searches. But it's fresh breeding stock.
Jack.
I believe on a prep podcast we talked about board role play where assimilate by injection. Anyway,
It was the first thing we said to each other as well.
I think so. So let's back down the moral indignation. So anyway, it comes to a solution where it's like, y'all, not only that, but like in order to get a proper gene pool, every man gets like 3 bitches, and all the men are like, fuck yeah, and the women are like, sure. End of episode.
Literally, like
I'm sorry.
It fades to credits.
P.S. Worf gets sick on the bridge and passes out. Turns out he has measles. Pulaski hides it because how embarrassing for a Klingon, and then they do a tea ceremony with absolutely no connection to the rest of the plot.
Not even a little passing reference.
But the tea ceremony is kind of interesting when it started, because I forgot about it. When it started, I was like, the fuck is Klingons doing with these flowers and this tea thing? Like this isn't very Klingon. Oh, it's poison. Okay, cool. It's poison tea, and I actually really liked like Pulaski taking the antidote and being like, yeah, let's do this. That was a good moment of like humanizing Pulaski, whom I believe everyone hated nearly as much as Wesley Crusher, who does not appear in this episode.
I think certainly at the time.
Yeah.
No, you're right. He doesn't. I think at the time, audiences definitely did not warm to Diana Muldaur. And I think time has been much kinder to her.
Right.
But yes, sorry to speak.
No, fine. But apparently the background is basically she had a horrible time on the show because the rest of the cast was incredibly mean to her. Apparently, because they all missed Gates and they took it out on her.
There was a little bit of because in the documentary Chaos on the Bridge, which is just essential viewing for anyone.
Watch that. It was great.
She talks about that they were this established unit, and one of the criticisms was that they were not as welcoming to her really as they should have been. Not even as much as they could have been, but as they should have been. And she was also coming from an older style of not only acting, but also Star Trek.
Right.
As she says, she's talking to William Shatner during this interview, and she's like, well, look, I was used to working with you, Bill, and I was used to the original series where... But I think the difference as well, not defending the TNG cast, but the original series cast were far less... We look back now and we see, Sulu and Uhura and everything. No, it was the big 3.
Yeah.
Featuring. Whereas TNG, pretty much from the off, was an ensemble. And it can be hard to break that. Now, they should have tried harder. I will say that. And it was not her responsibility in any respect that Gates was fired.
Right.
That's on Maurice Hurley.
But it's interesting because the credits for TNG list, it's starring Patrick Stewart and Jonathan Frakes and co-starring everyone else.
Yeah. I always wonder about that sometimes, because you see that a bit jumping all the way forward into Star Trek Picard. The episode Nepenthe, it's, guest starring Jonathan Frakes, but Marina Sirtis is in the end credits.
That's weird. That seems to be like an agent negotiating thing.
I think that's what it is. I think it's to do with negotiation. So I'm not sure if we're looking at an late 80s version of that.
And in all of season 2, Diana Muldaur is a special guest star. She's not in the credits.
Yeah. I'll have to fact check this. I don't know if that was by request or not. Because that suggests to me that she was only ever going to be a one and done.
But I think the reason people hated her is because of the way she was set up to be a foil to Data, and everyone just loved Data. Yes. So, like, fuck this bitch is basically how everyone thought. We love Data. And I do have to say, and we'll get into what we liked and didn't like and our memories of it. At this point of season 2, Data was Data. I felt like this was like, this is the Data we know. Because Data was a little, finding the character. Brent Spiner was finding the character in the beginning. This felt like, this is Data. Like he has found this is the Data we'll know for the rest of the time. And I really liked Pulaski in this. I just felt that she really gelled with the cast and had interesting things to do. Like I liked her in this episode.
I agree, actually. I think she's really good in this. Despite the fact I agree, the whole storyline with Worf has nothing to do with the rest of the episode, I actually really like her scenes with Michael Dorn. I think they are a good, I suppose, double act, if you like, in this. And down on the planet as well. Yeah. She and Riker seem to bounce off each other really well. And she's the one who delivers the coldest line of the episode when they're sitting in the observation lounge. And it's just like, all right, that's a bit. She's just like, right, well, we can continue to not help you, and in 50 years there'll be a planet sitting there ready for colonization because everyone will be dead. It's like, Jesus, Catherine.
I mean,
Oh my God.
I gotta say, like, fucking boss bitch. Like, I'm into it. Like, I'm into her because Gates McFadden, the Dr. Crusher was like a little less that. She was more like moral indignation and like I'm gonna do what's like. She lived more by the Hippocratic Oath than she did any Starfleet Prime Directive or anything, and that was what I liked
Yeah.
about that character is that she had sort of a a higher allegiance. And that was sometimes conflicted with what Captain Picard wanted to do, and they were old friends. So like, I just love that dynamic, and I kind of like having this doctor being just a little like, listen, this whole Starfleet stuff is cute and like whatever, but like, fuck y'all. Like, I kind of like having a character that's a bit like that. It's almost a bit Ensign Rowe.
Do you know what? I get that. Like Ensign Rowe, who is one of my honest to God favorite characters
Absolutely.
in the Next Generation, they take it to nearly the extreme with her. They still obviously take it further when they get the opportunity. Kieran Reese with Ensign Rowe being the blueprint for Kieran Reese, they take it really to the extreme with your Federation is cute. Anyway, here's my phaser. But with Pulaski, I kind of get the feeling in this she's just like, ain't none of y'all in this room my boss.
Right.
Like,
right.
not the captain, not anybody else in the room. And when I say no, it's no. And when I say yes, it's yes.
And I like it.
But I say that with the full authority of exactly with, Starfleet's medical corps behind me.
And I like it. I like having at least one character like that on the ship so that there's someone gives Picard a little shit. So I kind of like that. So let's transition into, so Sean, what memories do you have about watching this or first discovering it, if any? What did you like and dislike about the episode? And of course, would you like to make a statement on behalf of Ireland?
So, I feel that you and I will have had different first experiences with this episode. So the Long Ladder Law was sworn into the Irish Constitution around the time that this episode was released. I have broken that law by watching it now. At the time, I would have been only a nipper watching this, so I probably would more remember like my dad's reaction, just kind of rolling eyes and going, "Oh, here we go. Of course they've got chickens. Of course they're all, it's like diddly idle shite." And, kind of the next thing you see is someone's going to throw a spud at somebody else, And to be honest, that was the impression I had of this episode for years. I do remember catching it on rewatches, and then when things like the Star Trek Fact Files are coming out, reading the episode breakdown and going, this episode is shite. Like, this is crap. It's offensive, and it's lazy. Now, but I know that in my head, I'm retroactively assigning that feeling to younger Sean, because I wouldn't have thought it was lazy at the time. I would have just been like, why are they doing this? Yeah. This is rubbish. Like,
it is literally one step away from They Always After Me Lucky Charms. Like, it is on
absolutely.
That fucking level.
It is, and it's poorly executed.
It is the code of honor of season 2.
I always hesitate to compare anything. Well,
sure, because let's be clear, that one is exceedingly racist. So yeah, sorry, I'm speaking loosely. Please don't cancel me.
Kind of like, so as I said, as your new solo host of Star Trek Zhuzh-erations, my feeling on this is, so right, here's the thing. Now, I watched this episode obviously today in preparation for this, and I'd actually, full disclosure, I'd watched it a couple of months ago as well for another thing, and I don't hate it the way I used to, because I can see that there are ideas in this episode that are actually not bad. It's the execution and the way they chose to portray these ideas is the biggest sticking point. So my statement on behalf of the Irish is, Star Trek, do better. And they did. They slipped again. Star Trek Voyager, I'm looking at you. But Fairhaven and Spirit Folk.
Oh, yeah.
There you go. But again, don't hate them the way that a lot of other Irish... I tend to see Fairhaven and Spirit Folk as a little less offensive than I see Up the Long Ladder. which I'm sure if we get to those episodes, I'll discuss that. You were asking, I think earlier when you were asking about Colomini, who is in this episode, and kind of some people have made the joke, sure, could Colomini not have said, would you not bother doing that? Absolutely not. Colomini was a day player.
Right.
At this point in Star Trek's history, he was lucky to be on screen at all. He had a career, don't get me wrong, like he wasn't a nobody, but he was very much, kind of, he wasn't in the also starring, he was in the featuring credits.
Right.
And I think they included him here as an example of Irishness that was not twee. But we were looking at season 4 before O'Brien started to get properly fleshed out, with episodes like The Wounded and even Data's Day, which are, funnily enough, back to back. But I remember, now if we get to it, there is an episode of DS9's first season where they were going to do a very stereotypical Irish story. And at that point he said, over my dead
we
body.
talked about that, I think, on a previous episode where the Rumpelstiltskin in If Wishes Were Horses was supposed to be a leprechaun.
Supposed to be a leprechaun. Yeah, so by that stage, yes, he absolutely had the clout to be like, that's not happening. So what do I like about this? I like that some of the conversations between the Bringloidi and Starfleet are not as bad as the others. Your man Odell is an absolutely stereotypical caricature of an Irish father, but for So Help Me, I actually like the scene by the replicator with him and Worf. I just think it's gas, because it's just two lads drinking together. I actually think that's funny.
Okay.
And I'm not going to defend it. And if there are other Irish people out there who don't like it, that's absolutely fair. I thought that was more good-natured than perhaps it came across. I think a lot of the characterization of his daughter, whose name escapes me at the moment.
Let's say Fiona. I bet it's Fiona.
Sure. She is very inconsistent in how good / stereotypical she is.
Also, her whole character is a better potential flirtation love interest for Picard. She's a Picard type of woman.
A bit actually, because she is definitely presented as the boss, and this is something that I suppose would be more or less true-ish to Irish history of the 1800s. Now, obviously not the 1980s. Would be that kind of, well, he might be useless, but the man is still in charge. So then Father Odell is still, sorry, it's still his name on the piece of paper, whereas very much she is the one running everything, and she's keeping the people washed and fed. But there's this absolute and utter, kind of, we will never, ever, ever accept technology. We will never, ever accept technology, to the point of willful ignorance. And that's, again, where the episode falls, because you can have a version of this where, no, we know what technology is, we just choose not to use it. And I think that would have been a much better direction to go. They didn't. We'll come to that when I'm judging. And then, so over on the Mariposi, I totally buy their desperation. By the way, like what they do to Pulaski and Riker, I totally understand their drive behind that. And I think, at the same time, I also understand Riker and Pulaski going, we said no.
Right.
Like, no. Then Melinda Snodgrass, who wrote this, she said that there was this very unexpected fallout from particularly this scene. Yeah, I think, you know exactly.
I have it in my notes right here, just in case you didn't bring it up. Yep.
Absolutely. It became this argument over right to life versus pro-choice, which she was like, this was not the direction I planned to take this in. Basically Riker walks in and vaporizes the clones that have been made against his will. Yeah. Now, two steps of separation. Is this a fetus in the womb that he is choosing to terminate? Boom. Snodgrass and Paramount Pictures starts to get a lot of letters going. So hang on, are you coming down on pro-choice? Are you all anti-abortion? Oh my God, right to life, right to life, right to life. She's just like, but do you not see that it was forced against their will?
Well, right, but remember, we've got states now trying to pass laws where basically there's no exception for rape or incest. So where you cannot get an abortion even if you were raped and you had it against your will. So these are people who probably believe that. Well, yeah, it sucks that happened to you, but whatever. Which is
Or should there's still those people who say, well, a woman's body will just shut it down
that guy
if they want.
Oh, the body has a way of shutting it down. I think a woman's body had a way of shutting down that guy. But which is probably why it's such a dick. But I forgot about that. Oof. The other reactions to this episode, just while I have it up here, just real quick. Ronald D. Moore called it embarrassing, terrible beyond terrible, while Rick Colby said it was a lot of fun. I didn't have to sit there and tell people to pull it back. I wanted a contrast between our buttoned up guys and the Irish in that episode who were going bananas.
I was actually, funny enough, you're saying Rick Colby there. So when I was watching, the credits came up, it says directed by Rick Colby. I'm just like, this is the guy who directed All Good Things.
Yeah. But didn't we run into this? We ran into this with the director of Generations and whatever, who did
Yes, exactly. David Carson.
Who did Move
Along Home. Yeah, and he did Yesterday's Enterprise, he did Emissary.
But so these guys don't have any control over the script.
Exactly. I mean, okay, so the bad, well, I've alluded to / covered the bad. The characterization is just, they went for caricature where they could have gone for, they talk about, Data's the one who talks about, I think it's John Deegan is their their commune leader who sends them off on the ship back in the 22nd century, talk about embracing nature, going back to basics and everything. That's fine. Star Trek has done that in the past. The Way to Eden, which is also a much maligned episode. But the idea,
or the DS9 one where Sisko's put in that box. That's a great episode.
That is actually. I forgot about that one. Paradise.
That's a great fucking episode. That like freaked me out watching it. That I had a visceral reaction of like, that one got me. I liked that one.
Yeah, that was hard. You're right, because you're dead right. That is a horrible. Ooh, I'm gonna rewatch that episode. I haven't seen it in years. And so yeah, the idea behind the Bring Lloydie, I actually don't mind that at all. I think, yep, that's grand, that's cool, and it's also, and straight away it's going to be so strange in a Star Trek setting where we're on the 24th century, we're on the Enterprise. Kind of like, you can't light a fire on board the ship without the automatic suppressant starting it off. All of that I love, and I do love that culture clash. It's that they went for caricature, and that is like, guys, do better. Just do better.
I wish we could have seen that in action. Like they had the special effects to do it, because that would have been cool.
Yeah, exactly. Or even like, and actually, remastered Trek, I'm looking at you, but I suppose if the scene isn't there to begin with, you can't remaster. But I'm just like, come on, you would have got away with that. And then the Mariposi as well. I like it's actually quite a short part of the episode. We're talking, it's really, really short, their story, where the gradual reveal of twins, triplets, quadruplets. I kind of like that. Now, obviously, then we're on a planet of clones, aren't we? And I do like that slow reveal. The Mariposi story is stronger than the Bring Lloydie story, but the Bring Lloydie story gets more exposure because it's more jarring visually and tonally, because there's more of a contrast between Picard and his crew versus the Odells. You've got hay on the cargo bay versus these pristine steamed uniforms, whereas the Mariposi, at least, they're relatively technologically advanced.
Yeah.
What about you? Sorry, so I've monologued. What about you? So what do you like / don't like from this episode?
Well, we're running a bit long, so I'll keep it brief, so we can get to our zhuzhing. But it's I don't remember. I think I probably watched this in reruns, because I found Star Trek, I think, in season 3, and then had to go back. And I remember having to like ask my mom, like, who's this blonde lady? And like, oh, that's Tasha Yar. She died in the first season. Like I started at 3 and had to catch up. And like, where's Gates McFadden? Where's Dr. Crusher, my favorite character? Where is she in these episodes? Who's this woman? So I probably caught it on a rerun on like Fox, because they played like 2 back to back in like at like 5 o'clock and 6 o'clock in the evening.
Gotcha.
So I probably caught it on a rewatch. I probably recorded it because I used to put VHS tapes and record every episode, and then try to get figure out what order they were in. I probably never rewatched it again, or did like if I was homesick and just was going through tapes from school, maybe. Didn't remember anything about it. We talked about so the Pulaski Wharf thing is great. Data is Data. Missed opportunity with Geordi. I feel like it was only implied that they wouldn't want to clone him because he had a genetic defect. I think that should have been wait till my judging. And let me say, they would have thought he had a genetic defect. Let me say that. I liked the clone thing was creepy. I liked the fact that I do like the fact that they killed those clones and got rid of it. Yeah, I liked the actress and what she had to do, the midriff colonist lady. But her suddenly coming onto Riker felt weird. I would have liked if she had no interest in Riker, and just sort of batted him off the whole time because she's busy and she's got shit to do. Yeah, that's a Troy's useless in this episode. Pulaski was great.
I think she gets like 1 or 2 lines.
Right, Wesley's not here. Right.
Brenna Odell. Because I felt bad calling her like girl with midriff. Brenna Odell. Yeah.
So yeah, and you really hit all the points, and I have a lot. So just looking at my notes, because I capitalize things, I've got ew a couple times. I've got oof a couple times. I've got Fiddley D a couple times. Why are we drinking tea? The reveal is dumb. Oh yeah, I gotta talk about that. The entire investigation in the beginning between Picard and Riker, and I mentioned it earlier, is so stupid. Like, number one, come in here, listen to this. What do you think it is? Do you know what this is, buddy? Oh, well, let's ask the computer. Haha. Like, ew. Like, Riker's like, I wish Riker would have been like, fuck you, I'm 35. Like, talk to me like a fucking adult. Like, or whatever. I mean, he was probably 30 or what. Like Picard was being a real pretentious dick. Like, putting him through this sort of, I don't know. I hated it. I hated it. Make this a fucking captain's log. You know, you found a distress signal. It's the distress signal. It's this. We're on the way. Or do it in the observation lounge. But this whole, I felt like they were just trying to find another way to do this kind of scene. And thank God they never really did it again. This was cringe. Hated that. All right, so there's a ton to Zhuzh. I'm really looking forward to how you responded to this. Oh, and also, isn't it funny that this episode was allowed to play, but I believe Ireland would not allow High Ground?
Oh, that's a whole other
And it's one of my favorite episodes, and we'll talk about that some other day. But all right, let's take a little break, collect our notes, and come back for some zhuzhing. All right, set phasers to Zhuzh, because here we're going up the longest fucking ladder. All right, so here are the things that I'm keeping consistent about the episode.
Okay.
I'm keeping the backstory about where these colonists come from, but I'm making it firm that they left, let's say, Enterprise era.
Mm-hmm.
That's when they left, when when it was all kind of coming together by These Are the Voyages coalition, or shortly thereafter, they're out. So that's where I'm placing it. So they probably have like a Warp 5 ship at best. Like that's what they're doing. So I'm keeping that.
Okay.
I'm keeping that there's a group of science, and I'm making this more about progressives and like back to basics conservatives, people who are very, and maybe you could even have it that the science people, because cloning, we don't clone, we don't, and genetically enhanced, so we don't clone. We know that from Deep Space Nine, we know that from Khan, that they were like, no, we want to do that. Like, we think this is interesting. We don't like that we're being held back. We don't like this one world government. We don't like this Federation thing. We don't want to be held by these rules. We're going to go pursue science stuff however we fucking see fit. Almost like the augment kind of shit from Enterprise.
Gotcha.
almost.
Cool.
So I'm keeping that and making that, just clarifying and solidifying that a bit more. Keeping the back to basics, and you know what? You want to keep them that they're basically they want to get back to basics in a very Irish way. Fine, fine. We'll keep that. We just won't make them super stereotypical, but we'll give them sort of an Irish culture as sort of where they're coming from. We've got the tea ceremony's gone because it just doesn't fit with the episode. As cute as it was, it has nothing to do with anything. So that's gone. But I'm keeping also, the fact that the ship broke. The basic that the ship broke down. That you got a colony. I'm putting it on the same planet.
Mm-hmm. As in both colonies.
That you both colonies are on the same planet.
Okay, yeah.
So almost giving you, and I mention this episode every time because it's one of my favorite episodes, but giving you a Kesprit attached kind of thing.
Gotcha. Yep.
All right. Other things I'm keeping before I really get into it. I'm keeping the whole steal genetic material, discover it, fuck them clones, keeping all of that. And then no Middrift colonists. Maybe she'll be there dressed in. Well, you know what? If she wanted to wear that, let me say, if she liked wearing Middrift, she thought she looked cute, she's wherever the fuck she wants. But Riker's going to be nowhere near her. He's going to be with the Mariposa, and other people are going to be with the Irish, either by circumstance or by the fact that everyone on the Enterprise sees her, and they're like, we keep Riker on the ship. Like, we ain't doing this. All right. Because at this point, Riker's still a walking erection.
Yeah. Huh?
That really went away, except for the game where he was also horny. Okay, so that's what I'm kind of keeping. So with that, okay. So, is there anything else from the episode that you think I should have kept, or did you keep the tea ceremony?
I didn't keep the tea ceremony either. I think we talked about this just really, really quickly just before we came on air, that the very next episode, Manhunt, features a coming of age ceremony for Worf. I think added to that story. I think it makes much more sense.
Sure.
For clarity, we haven't deleted it from Star Trek history. We've just moved it.
Moved it. And we talked about before we started recording that this was still in the era of writer and fan script submissions where they'd buy it and take pieces of it and yada yada. And I fully think this was probably, I suspect that the tea ceremony piece was a piece of an episode that they bought and liked, and they just had to find a place to put it. And they put it in the wrong one. Probably because they need to fill time because the episode was terrible. Okay, so here's what we got going on. The Enterprise, we start off in a captain's log and an observation lounge where the Enterprise is dispatched to a colony in need of a science medical team. It is the descendants, and we get this in the observation lounge and a discussion about them. They already know who they are. No Riker. Can you figure out what this code is, buddy? None of that. The Enterprise is on its way. They've never heard from these people again because they wanted nothing to do. We can even know that the Federation has reached out a couple times and they basically gave them the finger. And now they have actually proactively reached out for help because they have a science problem they can't solve, and because it's this genetic drift thing and it's a dire. So we're starting with the Mariposa. That because it's a situation, they begrudgingly reach out for help because they are at the end of their fucking rope. So the Enterprise is in the area. The Enterprise is dispatched. Pulaski's already doing the research. She doesn't think there's any solution to this, but she's trying her best. And they're headed there, and they have a discussion in the observation lounge about, these colony ships that, that not everyone was happy with the formation of the Federation, that, there were people who very much didn't want, humanity to commingle with alien species. There were people who didn't like the advancements in technology that the Vulcan, relationship was bringing. And basically, they were a minority and they decided to go on their own way. And I want Data to have a very Data story here where he doesn't quite understand this. Haven't we learned, the Federation has grown into this. This is still just a single, colony, world. And they don't know about the cloning yet. They don't know about it. Oh no, they do. They have to because they don't because it hasn't been revealed. There's a medical problem, and that's they're being dispatched. So it hasn't been revealed. We don't know the cloning thing. But Data's going to have a journey and some conversations with maybe Picard and Riker about there's always a segment. There's always a segment of society that this sort of like pure. We're gonna have a talk about sort of like purity culture.
Okay,
you know,
yeah.
where you're not mixing bloodlines and then that sort of stuff. And though, you know, we don't, and getting that from two different ways, from the people who are like super science people who felt that way, sort of a eugenics kind of way, and then the people who like back to basics, we just want to live on a farm, go fuck yourselves kind of way. So that there's all sorts of flavors of this, but that we have to respect other people, you know, how they want to live their lives, and you know, as long as they aren't hurting other people, like let them live their
Hmm.
lives, sort of thing, you know, with Data not sort of understanding. And then yeah, so Data's going to have this sort of journey, and learning about sort of this, and then something about like, and also never underestimate the stubbornness of humanity, you know, kind of cute thing that maybe Picard will say. um, we're also going to get the sense, so before we even learn about the other colony, the Irish colony, the back to basics colony, we're going to get the sense that like there's a little bit there's a little bit of skepticism, but a little bit of admiration for the Mariposa people, that like, you know, they went on their own and they've done all these great scientific enhancements, they've done all this like research, and it's like, yeah, they did it for the wrong reasons, but you know, it's 300 years later. So how many 100 years later, who knows what they became, even if they started from a bad place.
Hmm.
And maybe this, you know, is now them coming back home. Maybe they're going to rejoin the Federation, you know, because they've realized that, you know, there's a hopefulness about finding these people, and kind of like, let's see what they've become, and we're going to bring them home. All right. So when they finally get, oh, also, so in Picard's conversation, I bet this wasn't established yet, or they didn't have it in the show Bible yet, but a good thing Picard could talk about is the relationship between, the difference between him and his brother,
Okay, yeah, okay.
as a parallel. That could be part of the
Yeah,
conversation with
actually.
Data. Okay. So we arrive, and Data does an analysis of the planet to show that only, they were expected, because they don't know anything. They haven't learned, they just know that they need help. So they show up, and only a small amount of the planet has been terraformed, and the rest of it is completely uninhabitable. Which, see, they find strange. In 300 years, this colony ship, like, it's probably like a city or two. Like, there's not much. So they find that strange. The rest of it, you know, and it's important that it's like completely uninhabitable. Um, so we get there. Riker goes to the. It's same thing. Riker goes. They get the clone reveal. He feels strange. Pulaski does, you know, the analysis. Reveals, and probably not immediately, but takes some time with it. Reveals that there's nothing they can do. That the problem is this genetic drift. All of that's the same. All of that's the same. Um, but I want to bake in some xenophobic racism. These people don't like Geordi, and they don't like Worf.
Okay.
They don't like
Okay.
Worf because we don't like messing with these fucking aliens. You know, humans. This is all about humanity and humans. We're all humans here, right? And we feel a little uncomfortable around him, and we don't like. It's weird for us to see a human who has in their view, a genetic defect. So we start to feel like maybe we don't like these people. Maybe they're a bit cringe. So, but that develops kind of slowly through interactions. Um, we What else do we get from this? So we learn the history that basically there was an accident. There was, maybe the convoy was attacked, or there was explosion, something where they say that the other ships were destroyed. They crashed. There was only some of them. Again, they only had so much terraforming equipment. They terraformed what they could. They did, you know, the cloning. They kept it small. They didn't go through the rest of the planet because they knew they were going to have this genetic drift problem. So they thought they would, you know, keep it, you know, a tight community to last as long as they possibly could. But they're at the end of the rope, and they need help, and they can't do anything. Pulaski can't help them. They're going to need to either leave the planet and start, you know, melding with another society, or they will die out.
Hmm.
They ask for the genetic donation. Everyone says fucking no. And we will have, so they stay. Pulaski, Riker, Geordi are there. Maybe Worf is like, fuck these fucking people. I don't like these people. I'm coming back up to the planet. So in the meantime, so they ask what they're doing there, because they're not going to, you know, do that, is that their genetic research equipment, there is some additional, you know, information and data and technologies that the Enterprise has that they're willing to at least give them, do some upgrades, help them, so maybe they can over time, before it all runs out, figure it out. So they're at least going to like enhance their science abilities to maybe figure out the problem themselves because they don't want to do the other options. So here's some tech. We wish you all the best, since we've offered other things and you've said no. Not a, oh, we're gonna have a nice planet in a couple years. Fuck y'all. Okay. Meanwhile, Data's detected something disturbing. There's human life in the uninhabitable portion. It seems to be a series of caves. He's astonished that there's any life form out there. They tell the Mariposa people, we don't know what you're talking about. We don't know that, which is going to end up being a lie. So they go down, and what they find are what are they called?
The Brynloidi.
Fiddley-dees? The Brynloidi. So the Brynloidi are down there, and basically what happened was, no, they crashed as well. Not only that, and so this is now Picard, Troy, Worf, maybe? People who are left, Data maybe? So they're figuring this out. So they find out that they crashed. A couple of the people most of them were the Fiddly-dees, and the other ones, there were a couple of people from the Mariposa team in the original who helped them construct sort of like some sort of field generator, some sort of thing that they were able to, whatever the bad effects, whatever makes this planet uninhabitable, they basically got a shielded community from it.
Okay.
They were able to terraform a little bit so that they could have crops and feed their livestock, and they were able to sort of generate this, again, like a parallel, but like a small community and village that is thriving and self-sustaining. Those people integrated into their society. There was enough of them. They were able to flourish, and they live the way that they want to live, but their technology is failing. And they always knew that it wasn't going to last for long. And because they went to this, they did the back to basics, they don't have anybody aboard. They don't have anybody in the community. Like, there's no way. They know basic upkeep, but they can't make a new one. They can't fix it. It's dying. Okay. Oh, let's pause because I'm going out. So thoughts about my setup here and how we interact with these people?
I'm interested to see how it comes back together again, because there's nearly a full episode in the Enterprise and the Mariposa. So
right.
But that's just that's the ingredients we've been given to work with here. So yeah, I'm interested to see how it all comes together.
So we find out. So they're like, okay, well, we'll help you repair this generator. So we're helping with the genetic stuff over here. But the Enterprise is basically saying, because they don't want to leave either. They don't want to leave. And we learn the Mariposa knows about them. About 200 years ago, the Mariposa was technology, found them, saw that they were there. They didn't want them in their community. The community didn't want to deal with them. They were dicks. The Bernaldi didn't. No one wanted to deal with each other and decided to just live their own fucking separate ways. But the fact that the Mariposa people lied that they were there, they know that the generator's failing and don't want to help because, look, they decided to rough it. So fucking rough it. They're huge fucking dicks. So, so we get to know that Picard's not happy that he's been lied to, that there are these people out here who need help, and the Mariposa people aren't gonna do anything about it, because they're snooty about their way of life, and they're gonna die from it, and they're willing to die from it, and basically it all so we have the genetic stealing thing. They destroy the clones. All of that stays the same. So basically it comes down to, look, we gave the solution to your problem is coming together, just in the way that Earth came together and then came together with other people. Look what the Federation has built. It is very clear that it is coming together and working together, respecting each other's cultures and respecting each other's way of life, but coming together and working together to solve our problems is the way that you advance and thrive. And it's your separateness and your stubbornness that is keeping both of you. It put both of you at the brink of extinction. So listen, we fixed your generator. Ironically, this new one is going to last just about as long as the genetic drift problem is going to come about. I've given you a communication device. I've given you a communication device. Work it the fuck out. And that's the end.
Okay, and so they're more or less left to their own devices.
Right, and it's very clear that, like, it's not that they're like being that Picard's being cold about it. They have refused. They're not coming up to the Enterprise. They're not going anywhere. They don't want to talk to each other. Almost, again, I reference this episode a lot because I love it, but attached, where they're like, you two need to figure this the fuck out before you come to the Federation.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So you have the answers to your problems, and at some point things are gonna get pretty dire. So I have a feeling they're gonna like figure it out.
Yeah. It's
So that's it.
when the choice is that or die. There is like,
Right.
that's a good motivator.
And we can give Picard a good, a good Picard speech about it. He's got a solid like, you're fucking stubborn. You're fucking stubborn. Both of you need to see, and your time, you have ticking clocks. So both of y'all, and maybe Brenna is, as we always have one, like in the First Contact episode, not movie. Brenna is the one in the Brinaldi who's sort of like, maybe we have a parallel. We've got a Brenna who's like, no, we need to work with them. Yeah, we don't like them and we don't want to live like them, but like we need them. And maybe there's someone in the Mariposa who's like, I would actually, I think it would be nice to kind of like raise animals and do that. That's, that there's people who like
The start of working together. I see the
of working together and who might actually like the other way of life. Someone who maybe wants to be in that community and someone who maybe wants to be in that community, and that it's not like everyone's a monolith. There's diversity even within their communities about maybe I would like to live like that for a little while. That sounds neat. So yeah, that's my zhuzhing.
Okay, I like it. It definitely makes it a more interesting story for sure. Because it gives everyone a little bit more impetus. It gives them, there's more of a ticking clock, but also there's more, they have more agency as well.
Mm-hmm.
Because as we've discussed in the episode, the Bringloidi just kind of exist.
Yeah.
There's not really any point to them other than that terrible reading something.
And there's no shock. There's no like, oh my god, we're on a starship. Like they don't. And actually, you know what? I kind of like that. Of just like they're like, oh, okay, cool, neat. We don't care.
Yeah. I like that. Like, oh,
yeah, this is
how
all
nice
it
for you.
need. Okay, we get right. We got wheat to scythe. Like we don't care.
We've decided.
All right, just episode, Sean.
Okay, so straight away the Worf tea ceremony, as we've said, that's gone out of mind. I am gonna keep the distress signal in the beginning, but it's not going to be traveling through subspace, which is why it's taken them so long to pick up on this distress signal, right? So that's why, it's a bit like, rather than have the SOS, we're all idiots, it's just a much older radio signal that's taken them forever to pick it up. We're going to meet, similar to yourself, we're going to meet the clones first. And they are going to be much more desperate when they get there, but it's a different situation. They're aware of the Bringloidi, but they're planning to invade. So
Ooh.
They are on different planets. I wanted that they are warp capable, but they don't have any warp technology at the moment, but they are aware of warp, because like that, going back to, funnily enough, there's a lot of crossovers. If they're 22nd century, then it's post First Contact, so they would at least have been aware of warp, even if, let's say for argument's sake, let's say they had superluminal speeds, like not quite warp, but still faster than impulse. They get to this planet, they crash, very similar setup. So they have continued to advance as much as they can technologically, but they don't have the raw materials for warp drive. So they're planning to get to, these are going to be very close, these planets. Like, as in, it is feasible for them to get to the Bringloidi planet. But it's just taking them this long to get there. So there is, unfortunately for my plot to work, there does have to be a little bit of a coincidence that the Enterprise rocked up at this time. Unfortunately, as it stands, I need to find, so I, as a writer, I accept that I need to come up with a better reason to get the Enterprise there. But
Right.
So they arrive, yes, in time to see that, these guys are prepping for war. They engage with the Enterprise. There's basically, it's like, what are you doing here? We are in conflict. But they're all very, very nice about it. They're not like, fire at the Enterprise. It's not like that. They have their target. That's what they're planning to do. And then, so the Enterprise is within hailing range of the Bringloidi, and then they are posed, there is a question: does the Prime Directive apply? Because they're humans, and because technically, although they don't have warp technology, they are warp capable. So does the Prime Directive apply? Can the Enterprise step in to intervene?
Question.
Go for it.
Did this come up in Ensigns of Command?
think it did. I think it did, yeah, but the Shellyak, and because in this, I suppose in this situation, they're both human, whereas in that one, it was the human colony that they just like, well, we're beaming you up because you're dead, were versus the Shellyak. So it's similar. It's definitely similar in that respect.
Okay.
The
Okay.
the difference will be in the ending. So
Okay.
they're going to go, so the Enterprise they decide they will warn the Bringloidi what's coming. The Bringloidi are going to be like, we know. Yeah, like we're not worried because we're actually in the process of building our own separate colony for them to come and live here on our planet. We know what their plan is. We're well aware of it. The Bringloidi are not the fiddly leprechaun dancing Irish that you get in the episode. There's much more like, and I said this just before coming on, it's much more like a Star Trek Insurrection Baku Sona situation. They are very, very aware. They're already preparing their own peace envoys. They know they've got time. And quite frankly, they're kind of thinking, yes, missiles are bad. We have a way of dealing with that. All we have to do is outlive them. Or we can invite them to come and stay with us. So basically, Insurrection is probably my biggest inspiration for this judging. It's a good shout about the Ensigns of Command. Like, there again, you've got that ticking clock coming down. One side is more on the surface technologically advanced than the other side. I'm going to keep the commune setting. I'm just going to take away that cluelessness of them. Like, it's by choice they've chosen to live with that technology. It's not that, because in the episode as presented, you have a feeling that, Jesus, these people haven't a clue what a lighter is, let alone anything else. Whereas in this, no. We know what it is. It's basically, it's the Baku. We know what it is. We just, to use Anish's immortal line, where could warp drive take us apart from away from here?
Right.
So my big things about it are, it's going to be the does the Prime Directive apply question, and then like that always good space for a Picard speech,
right,
and then the reveal at the end that the Bringloidi is just like, we know, we've been waiting, and quite frankly, we have the welcome wagon waiting to go.
Huh.
So
wow.
So that's kind of how I would judge it. So it's not massive. It's different to that. It just changes perspectives. It gives everyone a bit more agency. The desperation of the Mariposi is there has to be a communication issue, and there has to be a reason why the Bringloidi know and the Mariposi don't. So that's I admit I haven't figured that out yet. So there's a couple of issues with my version of like convenient arrival of the Enterprise and why don't they just talk to each other? So once I figure those out, I'm pitching this script to Star Trek Picard. Oh no, they've wrapped on that one. Star Trek Discovery, yeah, that's how it goes. So what do you think, first of all?
Well, first, before I get to that, let me apologize to our subscribers because Jack forgot to plug in his phone, so now they're getting a headshot of me if they're watching the video because I don't have any video anymore. So apologies to you. So the I like it. I mean, I like this whole like until you said we're making a home for them. I was like, ooh, hello, Ukraine, Russia. And then you were like, oh no, we're making a home for them. Like, okay, not Ukraine, Russia. No. I like, remind me again, why are they invading?
Pretty much the same reason. Breeding stock, they're dying off. These are the closest people, but they know that they're all from the same gene pool,
right?
If you like,
we can right. Yeah, I mean, I also think this is a great. I mean, it works also as a zhuzh for insurrection. Yeah, I love that you went. I went. The fundamental Federation principle was, diversity, coming together, teamwork, and your fundamental Federation principle was Prime Directive.
Yes.
Yeah. So we both tied it to a core Star Trek belief. A core Star Trek philosophy, and rotated around that, which really grounds it and makes it a real Star Trek episode in the way that, as written, it is not. And of course, we didn't do this at the beginning. We always want to say this during the episodes just because, Sean and I are obviously Trek super fans, pulling out all of these references. We love the episodes, even the bad ones. and we know that the writers have a lot of pressure and studio pressure, and we don't have any of that. So, and we have time.
Yeah, that's
So
very
we have
true.
time. We have time and hindsight, and we understand that writers had to come up with 26 hour-long episodes. They were getting ready for a writer's strike at this point, probably. And yeah, so no disparagement to the writers who probably did the absolute best they could do. Now, Rick Colby saying, "Oh, this was a really great episode. We had a lot of fun," is like,
It's a bit.
okay. I'm a more Ronald Moore. Like, yeah, this was a bad one.
I agree. It kind of feels like that, when they're doing the press tour for the film, like even
Right.
I think Insurrection and Nemesis, Middrifts. These are amazing films. I love these so much. Years go by, I hated every second of those films.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Well, in fairness, what they gave Marina Sirtis in those films were, let's have a conversation with Gates about boobs, and then also and get in the hot tub and shave Riker, and then in the other one it was oh, you're gonna get raped again.
Oh.
So she can complain about it all she fucking wants. We did not treat her well. Okay, so if you liked our zhuzhing, hated our zhuzhing, if you're an up the long ladder purist, if you're sitting up top of that long ladder and you're looking down saying, how dare you touch this amazing episode, we want to hear from you. So go on over to our Instagram. I believe it's Star Trek Zhuzh is because we just made it the other day.
Yay.
So Star Trek Zhuzh, Zhuzh. There are alternate spellings of this. That's the one we settled on because it's the most, I think it's the better looking one. ZHUZH.
Yes, it definitely
I think it's also
better on the eye.
easy to remember. Right, better on the eye. We also have a Patreon link below. Do you want to watch these episodes with us? Do you want a full video of us discussing this episode, with the exception of today, where you're now currently looking at my headshot because Jack never charges anything? Do you want us to do special episodes where we do the movies? Do you want uniform optional episodes? You let us know, because if Sean and I, despite our love for Star Trek, what we love more is doing all of this for you.
We do. We really do.
We really do. So connect with us, and you can even also help us pick the episodes. Maybe we'll do some sort of raffle of we'll let a super fan of ours pick an episode for us to do. But in the meantime, we're picking our own episodes, and because I have committed a hate crime against Sean by picking this one, I am very frightened as to what he is setting up for us next.
I think it'll be rapidly apparent that I'm much nicer than Jack. So,
truer words were never spoken.
I mean, let's just be honest. We are, however, we're going to take a trip to the Delta Quadrant.
Okay.
And no, it's not that episode that you're thinking of. It's a Harry Kim episode. Jack, we're going to zhuzh up favorite son.
Okay, so I'm better with Voyager than I am original series because I watched the whole thing. But there's a lot of episodes of Voyager that I watched.
Harry Kim thinks he's an alien.
Okay. I kind of remember this.
So yes, we're going to have a look at that one and see how you get on with that.
Favorite son. Is this some like Kira as Alana Gamor vibes?
Different enough that I'm going to say no.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like I'm having like visions of what the aliens look like. What season of Voyager is this from?
2.
Yeah. Yeah.
3. Sorry, season 3.
3. So we still got Kes.
We do still have Kes. Yes, it's pre-7.
Pre-7. Okay. No memories of this. Interesting. Harry Kim, the least promoted officer of Starfleet.
It's ridiculous.
Clarinet playing. Yeah. A character that could have been exceedingly interesting that they really just... Honestly, I wonder if they just didn't like Garrett Wang.
We will discuss that in our next episode.